churn at the enterprise level should typically be less than 10% a year. And so what I want to go through is what are the phases of the customer journey? How do you influence those phases so that you can have net negative churn? And so one of the things is knowing where your customers are in their customer journey. And this is what I said earlier when I was at Red Hat, Bronto, and now SolarWinds. The journey is the same regardless. The nuances within the journey differ. And this is this journey chart, I really like. It has 7 phases of the customer journey. There's different variations of this journey chart. Some have 5, but they're all basically the same, right? It starts with the past experiences, gaining market awareness, getting your customers to first use, nurturing them through the learning phase, getting them to proficiency so they become champions over time. And the concept of negative churn is that what are the things that you can do throughout that journey to influence their behavior so that a couple things happen. One, you reduce the number of cancellations. You get them to stay a little longer, too, and you increase your opportunity to expand, cross-sell, and upsell. If you do that, and you influence that journey along that trajectory, you're able to have churn be a growth driver. So I'm going to go through those phases briefly. The first phase, past experiences and market and driving awareness. Those are phases 1 and 2. And what I have up here is an example from SolarWinds, a high velocity model example, where we have a freemium model. This is a very common software model where we bring customers in with a free version of our product, or really inexpensive version, and we land and expand. And a lot of companies do a great job focusing on market awareness. That's what your marketing departments do, right? What are they doing? They're creating awareness, driving traffic to your site, getting those eyes on the site. And so they do a really good job at this already today. But the other thing I want to mention on phases 1 and 2 is how much past experience really matters. So as much as you want to differentiate your product or your services from your competition, you don't want to be so different that I don't get it as a prospect. Because my expectation on how your software tool is going to work is based on my prior experiences. So you can be unique and advanced and different, but not so advanced. And that's not just how your product works, but that's how you price and package. If everybody in your sector and your industry has a certain pricing model, and you're way over here, and you're trying to get me to leave the competition to come to you, it's going to be hard for me to figure out, well, how much is that going to cost me? I have to budget for that, and I can't predict what that spend is going to be. Understand how important in this early phase those past experiences are. Phase 3 is the first use phase. So you either have them as a prospect, in our case, right? They're using a free version of our product, and we need to convert them to paid, or you're in a mid-market or enterprise space where you've already converted them to be a customer, and they're onboarding. The most important thing you need to understand is, what is your window of opportunity? How is it? How big is it? How long is it? And how can you accelerate that motion to get those customers through? Because this is a very tenuous phase. It's possible that the user of your product is not the same person that's the buyer, right? And so they may not be as bought in. So let me give you a couple of examples. In our world, high velocity, we have a product called Paper Trail. And we know that we have 6 hours. 6 hours from the time they download the free version of our product. It's a logging product. If they're not uploading logs and using that to troubleshoot, they're not going to convert. So what do? We immediately start to message them to say, hey, these are all the logs that you can bring into our tool, and here's some great ways for you to get started, right? Now, maybe your window is 60 days because you sell into the mid-market, right? And so what do you do there? You need to make sure that your customer is advancing through all the things that they need to do to get set up and go. And so maybe the way you do that is you attach services or training or something else to make it really, really easy to get them through. Here's another great example. There's a software tool out there called Canva. And what Canva does is it's a graphic design tool targeted at people that know nothing about graphic design. And they do this really, really well. So they know who their customer persona is. That's like me, right? I know nothing about graphic design. If I have a need to figure out I want to do some cool graphics, I use Canva, and the first thing they do is recognize I'm a beginner and I'm new. And how about I take a challenge? How about I take the beginner's challenge so they can guide me through how to use their tool? And this is really, really great because this is them pushing me through the window. Right? They know what the window is, and they have some pretty cool technology. There's great tools that enable this kind of technology that get me through the window as quickly as possible. So that's phase 3, first use. So then we get into phase 4. This is the nurture phase, right? This is the decide to learn. And this is where most companies fail. Because what is your company doing today? You're really focused on traditional marketing, right? Bringing leads to the site. Companies do a good job converting. There's lots of tools that help that. And really, a lot of companies do know what their onboarding phase is. Mine is 6 hours for some of my tools. Maybe yours is 60 days. Maybe it's 6 months. And there's a lot of focus on getting customers through that first use phase. And then what typically happens is companies just let those customers go. And so really what you need to do is nurture your customer through this learning phase. I am through the first use, so I get the basics. But now, how well do I feel supported? Where do I go to get help? You need to make sure that they know what the resources are. And it's easy, right? Reduce that friction so that you're guiding them along and helping them learn. A couple great examples of that. So I mentioned that SolarWinds has a community forum called THWAC. And THWAC is amazing because there's 150,000 members, highly active, and this is across many, many products. And so what that means is, as I'm a customer, I can get answers from other customers. I go to this community, and customers are not only answering questions, they're doing some best practice advice there, but they're also rating features, right? So if we want to figure out if a feature request is really popular, we put it on THWAC and let them vote. Right? They'll also be rating us on features that really suck, right? And so there's a lot of great activity, but as a new customer, I feel well supported. This is one of the easy ways that I know how to get help. And the other thing we do, you see Canva did a kind of beginner's challenge. That's a gamification approach. We use a gamification with THWAC. We do a monthly mission. Every month we have a new mission, and it's a game that we challenge customers to participate in. We get lots of activity. Customers step up. They want to be recognized. They win prizes. This is our mission for this month, this hidden key. And a customer, whoever gets through it with the best results, gets a Bluetooth speaker. And when you do this kind of gamification strategy, you also get to find out a lot about your customers. Because, I work in a SaaS world, but maybe your product is on-prem. It's much harder to figure out how your customers are using your technology so you can influence their behavior if you don't know what's going on in their world. And so with this kind of community forum and gamification, we're actually able to ask customers questions in this concept of this hidden key and learn about what's going on in their environment. That's really great intellectual information that we could leverage to really expand and really address their needs better, know what their pains are. That's another example of somebody who does this really well. This is a company called BombBomb. This is a Pendo success story. So BombBomb has a software platform that allows marketers to embed video right in their email messages. And so what BombBomb has done here is they've leveraged Pendo to recognize that I'm a user and I'm getting ready to use a feature I've never used before. And in this case, it's called the prompt setup, right? I'm getting ready to use this prompt feature. And what I love about what BombBomb is doing is they know through Pendo Analytics what I'm doing. I've never used this feature before. And what do? They pop up this friendly face, Lauren, and she's like, hey, I'm Lauren, I'm your success manager. I see you're getting ready to use this feature. Would you like some help setting it up? Click here to schedule. So, now, I know that this is through automation. They can do this at scale. But look how highly personalized it is. I have a face. I have Lauren. She has a name. She's my success manager. That is really, really cool. Now, I would challenge BombBomb to take this a step farther. Because if I'm getting ready to use a prompt feature, maybe I want to talk to Lauren, but again, I got a schedule, and really I'm trying to use it right now. And so in addition to what BombBomb is doing here, I would challenge them to say, or click here for a 3-minute tutorial on how to set up the prompt feature. A lot of companies look at education as this kind of big bang webinar theory. Once a month we hold a webinar, customers will come and we'll teach them how to use our platform. But really the way to do it is to break up all that education into little tiny consumable bites and sprinkle it in your application so you are influencing customer behavior when they need it, right? Not when it's convenient for you at your monthly webinar, because I could be in Australia and that doesn't work. But when I need it, which is when I'm getting ready to use it. As I said, there's tools like Gainsight and Pendo that really allow you, if you're a SaaS platform, to know when customers are getting ready to do something different and for you to smooth out that friction and help them. So now, I'm through phase 4. I'm through the decide to learn phase. And so now, phase 5 is when I'm becoming proficient. I'm sorry, that's 6. I'm building experience, right? So I'm through that window. I've learned the first use. I feel nurtured, and now I'm just getting better and better. So if you want to influence customer behavior and reduce churn, this is when you really need to have your platform be sticky. There's a lot of talk about stickiness and what it is, but fundamentally, for your product to be sticky, it needs to do a couple of things. One is it has to be integral. It has to show their value, right? And so you need to make it easy to do that. If your platform saves your customers money, right? When they log in, have a great report that shows them how much they've saved over the last period, week, month, year, whatever it is. If your platform is driving revenue, when they log in, have a dashboard that shows the incremental revenue that you've driven. If your product is food logic, right, and Katie was talking about, they're really tracking recalls. When that customer logs in, because that's kind of also peace of mind, right? You need to have a dashboard that shows them the recalls that they've helped manage, the amount of time they've reduced for that crisis customer Chipotle, right? And so that's really, really sticky. Know what's important to your customers and make sure your product addresses it. The other way from a stickiness standpoint is know the activities that are going on tangentially for your customers, right? What are the other tools they're using that are interfacing with yours? And figure out how you could pull more and more of that into your platform. So there's a king of stickiness. Love them or hate them. Salesforce is the king of stickiness. So, they started in marketing automation, right? And so they have, Salesforce, which brings in leads, turns them into opportunities, converts them to customers. Lo and behold, right, then they moved into Service Cloud. So now you have customers, and now you have to serve them. So there's a ticketing system. It backs it up with a CRM system, integrates with Jira, all this great stuff. So you have prospects, right, opportunities. Now you have customers in Salesforce. What do you need to do next? You need to market them. So they acquired a company called ExactTarget, and now they have a marketing platform integrated in. None of these, outside of maybe the sales tool, is really best-in-breed tools, right? But they're good enough, and they're integrated in. It makes it really, really sticky. So if you're smart and you're taking more of that ecosystem into your platform, right, and making it really, really sticky, it doesn't have to be the best. It has to be good enough and priced efficiently so that you're like, wow, you know what, it's so easy. It's so easy because I use Salesforce that I want to use Service Cloud, right? It makes a lot of sense. But Salesforce is the Goliath. They're the beast. So how about an example of someone who's really more down to earth or doesn't have as big pockets? HubSpot does a great job at this. So HubSpot started on the marketing side, right? How do you drive traffic to your website? How do you optimize SEO? And they're on a very similar trajectory, right? So they realized that the other thing that their customers are spending money on is the same journey. Now you've got the traffic to your site. How do you convert that into sales? So now they have Sales Hub. Lo and behold, then they have Service Cloud. So they're smart. They're looking at what else is going on. Their customers are spending money elsewhere. And they're creating great, great expansion and sticky plays here, which really influences your negative churn. Phase 6, your customers are proficient. And this is your expansion play. And this chart on the right is an actual chart for one of our products. This is very typical. I said high velocity model, SolarWinds model. This kind of land and expand. So we bring in many, many customers at very low cost. And they grow slowly over time. And then they hit this trajectory where they really start to expand and grow. And we know and track the behavior of customers that are doing this, and we look to influence them, to get them there faster, get them to stay a little bit longer. And so it's not that you can't look to expand earlier in your customer journey, but you have to be careful. Because if your customer is in their first use phase, and you have account managers calling in to say, buy more, that's a very risky approach and a very risky phase. So you need to know where your customer is in the journey, and ideally, they're in the later stage of decide to learn, they're in the proficiency phase or their champion phase. And that's when you're reaching out to get them to expand. And the other thing is make sure that you have easy ways for customers to expand. That cross-sell, upsell comes back to that pricing and packaging, right? Not only big rocks, but what are the little ways that you can do to get customers to spend a little more money with you? And those little bits of dollars add up significantly over time. So a couple of examples. I'm going to go back to HubSpot. They have a freemium model as well. You come in low, and I'm not a HubSpot customer, by the way, but they do it well, and there's other examples besides SolarWinds. So they have this tiered model, very similar. Let's say I'm a marketing customer, right? And so they have those big rocks, right? I'm a marketing customer. Why don't I buy Sales Hub or Service Hub? But they also do something else really smart, because those are big rocks. And I have to really go down that journey in order to get to that point where that significant expansion makes sense. The other thing, though, that they've done is have really easy add-ons. I'm in the journey, right? And look, these are very cost-effective add-ons. Smart pricing and packaging really helps your expansion play. So I'm a marketing customer. Wow, look at these reports. I talked about this, right? These reports, $200 a month, I get customizable reports. I can export them as PDFs. I can have them automatically sent to my boss, right? I get dashboards. Wow, that's easy add-on, and it's very cost effective, right? It's not crazy. Oh, ads. Wow, how smart is that? I'm spending money on ad spend anyway. So if I spend $100 more with HubSpot, I'm going to get a lot. And so, these low-end add-ons, when you're talking about a lot of customers, that expansion play is really, really, really strong. Small add-ons make a really big difference when you sell them at scale. So then when you get to the customer journey, we're at the champion phase, right? And you need to model your champions as much as you look at your customers that are leaving. Right? Because when you look at what your champions are doing, you find that the behavior of champions is really different. So know what your happy customers do. And then look at the other side. What is happening with your cancellations? These customers, right, they come on, their usage is high, but over time, the story changes. And the usage goes down. Maybe I'm logging in less. I'm using less volume. I'm not adopting those advanced features. And then I'm getting close to churning. And when you map out those ends of the spectrum, what you find is that you have data that tells you a story. And this story can be really, really compelling. And it can enable you to influence behavior and influence it at scale. So this is an actual churn prediction chart for one of our products. And what you see is the blue bars, this is distinct features used. And the XY axis is the moment of churn. And the blue bars show, those are customers that stay. And the orange bars are customers that churn. And so what you see is as they get closer to the point of churn, over here in that XY0 axis, the number of distinct features they use, there's a very big gap. And so we know what that gap is. But my challenge for you and what most companies do is they're really looking at this 3 months or less mark, right? They have an account management team, they're reaching out at renewal, and they're like, you know what, we're not going to renew. If you're waiting and you're not keeping track of what your customers are doing, if you wait till this 3 months or less, it's too little, too late. Because what we see is that the data tells a story. And this behavior change starts much earlier. For us, it's in that 8 to 11 months, right? When they're through that journey, and for whatever reason, they're not becoming proficient. And they're starting to wither. And they're not at the point of death. But they're going to get there if we don't look to influence that behavior. And so we move up that journey so that we are monitoring what they're doing and looking to reduce that friction so we can get them to stay a little bit longer, right? If we can get a bunch of customers to stay a month longer, maybe in your case it's a year longer, right? We get them to adopt one more advanced feature. We get many small expansions. It really makes a huge difference. And so this is compelling for us. And the other thing is, if you map out the data and you understand the story your data is telling you, then you have to make it scale, right? You have small account management teams or customer success teams. So if you can bridge that data and put it into whatever tool they're using, or even start simple, right? Put it out, print it out in a report, it tells you who you need to focus on, right? And then you can also build dashboards to show the health of your business. Fundamentally, with net negative churn, the health of your business is high. So there's similar to the calculation on net negative churn, there's a concept of a quick ratio, which also compares the expansion to cancellations to really indicate the health of your business. And so you need to monitor that not only at the leadership level, but at your customer success or account management level. So you can influence, because fundamentally, churn is going to happen, right? And this is a relentless pursuit. Churn is always going to happen because you know why? Happy customers do leave. And they'll leave because they go out of business. Or they may leave your product because they've been acquired by another company, and that company has a product standard, and it's not yours. So you need to also segment that churn and look at what is the area you can influence. Because there's a segment you can't, right? Let's say 3 to 4% of your churn is customers that don't need your tool because they're out of business or something else. Well, it's the remainder of that churn that you want to map out what their journey is and really look to influence it in small ways. Every month, every day, through automation or one-to-one relationships if you're in a more enterprise model. And by doing that, you can influence this journey and ultimately turn that churn into a growth driver and achieve net negative churn. And that's the end.